Bitcoin should be at 0.2 M or 200K. And the CIO of Bitwise also said the same thing. Like, we're way undervalued from where we should be right now. And of course, that's just my gut feeling, and that's probably his gut feeling too. But it doesn't feel right. And usually what happens, I think, when things are kind of disconnected, is that there's a fast reconciliation. Like, it's got to reconcile. All of this bullish news, and we're kind of stagnant in the 80s range, not even 100s range. It's just wrong, and it should adjust and right itself, which means, 10K candles, maybe 100K candle, and that'll put us in the right.
Forget the charts. Bitcoin isn't meant to be stuck in the $80,000s, not with this kind of fuel. Spot ETFs, institutional FOMO, and a halving-induced supply crunch. Every fundamental screams explosion, yet we're stalled. When markets disconnect this hard from reality, the correction isn't slow, it's sudden and violent. Samson Mow, the Bitcoin maximalist who called El Salvador's move, isn't just bullish, he's prophetic. He calls it a number so audacious it feels like a dare. This isn't undervaluation, it's a coiled spring. When it snaps, expect $10,000 daily candles and a rocket straight to $100,000 in a single move. This isn't a rally, it's a reset by fire. The real question isn't if Bitcoin breaks out, it's how fast. When liquidity returns, when the halving shock kicks in, and when Wall Street catches on, the shift will be instant. The ones left behind won't be the skeptics, they'll be the ones who saw it coming but didn't move. Tick-tock. Bitcoin doesn't wait for permission.
Stop. You don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
We'll probably see 50K in a day, and then we'll get to 100 later. But we will get there eventually.
I think we did the 10K candle in a day, though. That's already checked off.
There's been 9 10Ks. If you count the red ones, there's 9 or 10 of them. You see a 10K down and then a 10K green. I think a 10X is within the realm of possibility, highly possible.
Okay.
Just because there's so much demand and there's limited supply.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world doesn't yet realize that there's limited supply, right?
Yeah.
The world is accustomed to fiat money printing, and we can print our way out of the problem that we created, or we can always have an escape hatch, or there's a way to do something. We can adjust the rates or whatever, but there's nothing you can do with Bitcoin. There's only 21 million, and I don't think the world has woken up to that fact yet, or else they'd be scrambling to buy it already. Given that there is demand from the US, 1 million is the Bitcoin Act from Cynthia Lummis, right, to acquire 1 million. And then there's a proposal put forth to acquire about 2 million Bitcoin in the form of a Bitcoin bond or Bit bonds. So that's 3 million of demand. So where's that going to come from? And Sailor has 500,000 now. Yep. The ETFs are still accumulating. And now GameStop is coming into the mix with $4.6 billion of cash. And there's other players with a ton of cash, like Berkshire, Apple. So what's going to happen?
Number go up.
Probably.
Number go up.
It's just a matter of when.
We're seeing all these Bitcoin purchases, but there's really no way to verify that. That could be paper Bitcoin. And, that could be an explanation as to why we're not seeing that upside volatility.
I don't think it's paper Bitcoin. The hardcore crypto anarchist Bitcoiners are probably thinking, it's paper. But it's highly unlikely that it is paper. I don't think Brian Armstrong would want to go to jail. And I have more faith in Sailor that he has the Bitcoin. I think the price is just, it's depressed. When we're flat and people are kind of worried, the hedge funds and prop trading firms, they can push the price down, right? They just have to, execute a sell order at the same time, right? From time to time you see a blip on the chart and we know some guy fat fingered an order and that's why it went down. So the price is just a feed, and it can be manipulated by a couple firms all fat fingering at the same time, and that causes a panic, and that's what got us down to the 70s, right? And it takes time to recover because it's market sentiment. But the price feed is completely separate from the supply of Bitcoin, which is dwindling. which we don't really have an idea of exactly how much is available to sell. We have people saying, oh, there's always someone that will sell, and there's always some whale that's going to sell it and buy like a mansion and a jet or something, right? But from all the OGs I talk to, none of them are really changing up their lifestyle. So I don't know who is selling. So again, it has to reconcile that the supply is being sucked up at this 80K range by all these big players, and that has to stop sooner or later. So it's not the IMF said, you've got to stop doing something. The document that was released is a 119-page agreement that the government of El Salvador and the IMF reached together. It's not they're being forced. Like, the force would have been during the negotiations, but this is a formal agreement. This is why I theorized that they would stop buying. But then the president said, this doesn't stop. This probably alluding to buying or adding. But then the IMF also released a statement saying El Salvador is compliant with the agreement. So I'm not really sure exactly what's happening, but there are a bunch of theories floating around that there is a loophole. Either the time is not reached, which they have to stop buying, because there was a series of deadlines for different things to be shut off. Like Chivo shuts off at this point, they have to unwind at this point, and they have to do all these different things at different points in this year. So it could be possible that they haven't reached the point at which they need to stop accumulating, or there's a theory put forth that it is internal transfers, which could be possible because not all of their holdings are disclosed. When they first created their SPR, or they just called it a treasury at that point, they said, like, we're moving a portion of our Bitcoin to this reserve. So that implies that they have other Bitcoin that is non-public. And I think Joe Nakamoto is running with that theory. The other one is that they're donations, which I don't think it'd be possible to sustain at that level of one a day. Of course. Unless there's a really big whale that wants to give one a day.
Just one.
So something doesn't make sense here. Something doesn't add up because there is an agreement. It is not, gray. It's very black and white, very clear, 119 pages of it. Yeah. And they're compliant with it, according to the IMF, which, the IMF doesn't, they don't joke around. They want to exert control and they want to dictate policy. And it sounds like they got what they wanted. I don't think they would say, yeah, we agreed this, but the agreement really doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't see them playing that game.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie. Institutional demand is surging while Bitcoin's available supply continues to shrink post-halving. Yet, prices remain oddly flat. Market makers might be suppressing volatility, but the fundamentals are undeniable. ETFs, nation-states, and billion-dollar funds are all vying for a finite number of coins, and the pressure is building. When this dam finally breaks, we're not talking small moves, we're talking $100,000 daily candles. The only unknown? Timing. But one thing's certain. In a world drowning in infinite fiat, Bitcoin's engineered scarcity always wins. Beyond price action, Bitcoin is now challenging global financial power structures. The IMF, which holds sway over 94 nations through its special drawing rights system, faces a rising competitor. Forward-thinking countries are adopting crypto not just for innovation, but as a strategic weapon, building leverage today to negotiate tomorrow. The IMF doesn't just fear Bitcoin's volatility, it fears what Bitcoin represents, the loss of centralized control. This goes far deeper than finance, it's about sovereignty. Bitcoin offers nations an escape route from IMF-imposed debt traps and a path to true economic independence. As Samson Mow puts it, the revolution won't be televised, it'll unfold one adoption at a time. And it's already begun.
Your mission right now is nation-state adoption. Now that the IMF has essentially revealed their cards, and, was it 94 countries? So the majority of the world's countries essentially have these dealings with the IMF. What are you going to do? What's your strategy?
Well, it's not every country, so there are other countries that are not under the thumb of the IMF. But yeah, they are very pervasive in their reach. And I don't know, like some countries that we engage with that we know are beholden to the IMF, we still tell them you should do it anyways, even as a bargaining chip, so you can undo it later and, get something out of them, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to be that is the play here. Like, they don't like it. You can do something with Bitcoin or talk favorably about Bitcoin, maybe add some Bitcoin policy, and it'll take them a couple of years to unwind that. And in the meantime, you have a bargaining chip, because if you are in debt to the IMF and they say, Nico, dye your hair red and wear your shirt backwards, what's your bargaining chip? You have nothing. But if you did do a Bitcoin strategy,
It's true.
at least you could say, yeah, okay, we'll undo that,
Yeah.
and you can not have to wear your pants backwards.
Yeah. Why do they care so much from them benefiting from Bitcoin? Like legal tender? No, you can't acquire it. Like why are they so they're scared. They're like they must be terrified.
Well, I think there's two things here. One is the obvious answer, which is Bitcoin makes the IMF obsolete, because their funds don't exist actually. They don't even have the fiat. What they have is a special drawing rights, SDR. Not SBR, SDR, special drawing rights to create money, basically. And it's all imaginary money on top of imaginary money. So with Bitcoin and a Sun Money standard, you can't really do that anymore. You can't have a special Bitcoin drawing right and lend that out, right? It doesn't work. So that would be one reason why they're incentivized to fight against Bitcoin, because it makes them gone. It's like if USAID could fight Elon, wouldn't they? Yeah, of course they would, right? The other answer is, I think El Salvador is not in a good fiscal position. So Bitcoin News posted a long thread about the financial situation of the country, and it looks like their debt to GDP ratio has increased a lot, and their debt has increased by 55% or 54% in the last 4 years alone. So fiscally, they're not in a good position, and they need the IMF money to, not default, which it seems like they don't want to default, not with the trajectory of growth that they have right now.
Of course.
So they're in a difficult position where they have to take the loan or default. And I think the IMF wouldn't lend them the money if they were still buying Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So they're kind of looking at it from a pragmatic standpoint, which is you're getting further into debt and you're still taking money to buy Bitcoin.
In a way, it's kind of malicious, I would say, from their end.
True. And the problem is they didn't have enough Bitcoin. See, if they had enough Bitcoin,
They could just say,
that would be enough to finance the debt. Or if they had like mining, right? If they had volcano mining and had ramped that up, then they would have a better position to bargain from. But they didn't have that. So they do need to service the debt or default. So they kind of need to take the deal. And the IMF cannot rationally give them money if they're still taking the money to buy Bitcoin. This is why I think there's some loophole there, because the IMF would not agree that, yeah, we're going to buy 1 Bitcoin a day when your debt is doubled in the last 4 years.
So what has you the most excited personally?
I think it's just real adoption of Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I think all the things happening in the US are going to accelerate it. Like we see countries moving up their timelines to implement some sort of Bitcoin strategy now that they see something happening in the US. Even though it was obviously going to happen, nobody really believes it until it happens. There's also Bhutan with their Bitcoin earnings. They're building an airport, right? These concrete real world examples of Bitcoin prosperity are what will make people actually do something, not us talking about Bitcoin. They have to see someone actually succeed with Bitcoin. When they see the airport being built with Bitcoin, mined Bitcoin, that would have otherwise not existed because it would have just been run off hydropower, that changes the logic circuits in people's heads, and they understand, okay, all this excess energy is actually money, and I can get stuff with it, like roads and airports and trains. Then I think the equation really changes. And what that leads to is more Bitcoin adoption, which means more people in the world use Bitcoin as money, which solves the fundamental problem of financial inclusion. So I guess the short answer is we're going to see the world change because everyone will be able to participate in the financial system now, whereas previously they're excluded. So people will be able to set up businesses, trade internationally, all with Bitcoin rails. And I think we haven't seen a world in which everyone is on equal footing, that everyone can trade with one another, save in the same hard asset, and the asset that billionaires want. And that is really transformative for humanity and prosperity.
Recent Bitcoin price action has traders on edge, with BTC dipping from $88,000 to $82,000 amid gold's rally and ETF outflows. But according to industry experts, these short-term fluctuations are just noise. The bigger picture is a looming wave of central bank liquidity, perfectly aligned with the bullish outlook shared by top macro strategists. With the DXY weakening, recession concerns mounting, and rate cuts expected as early as July, central banks look poised to inject liquidity into the markets, the exact fuel Bitcoin needs for its next explosive move. This macro setup points to the potential for violent upward revaluations, especially as temporary headwinds like trade tensions, institutional caution, and gold's safe haven appeal begin to fade. Meanwhile, adoption remains the core narrative. From nation-state strategies to institutional products like BlackRock's BUIDL fund, momentum is building. The IMF may resist, but Bitcoin's fixed supply makes widespread adoption inevitable. Gold's recent divergence only highlights the difference. Bitcoin isn't just digital gold. It's a sovereign asset with no counterparty risk, built to thrive in the next phase of global liquidity. As Samson Mow and others have pointed out, the current price disconnect won't last. Whether Bitcoin briefly revisits $65,000 or consolidates above $77,000 matters less than the trajectory. When the liquidity dam finally bursts, the move could be swift and dramatic. Think multi-thousand-dollar candles in a single day. The only question now is, will you be positioned before it happens? Let us know what you think could delay Bitcoin's next major breakout: recession fears, regulatory crackdowns, or something else. Drop your thoughts in the comments.
For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these two awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.